For those that are joining, welcome. We're going to give it about 5 minutes to get some people in. Right now, I'm seeing only one. As you're joining, let me know you're here, and we'll get it going in about 5 minutes. So just hang out for a couple minutes, and we will get the live stream going soon.
As a kid or Pokemon cards.
For those just joining, we're going to get it going in about 5 minutes. Welcome. I see 3 people are in now. As we're getting some people joining in, we are going to get this underway. I'm going to give it about 3-4 minutes or so just to get a few more people in the session, and we're going to get underway soon. Guys, if you're joining this session, this is going to be really valuable in terms of growing your wholesale business in 2022. Brandon Ainsley, finally get to watch you live. I'm doing great, man. How are you? I'm glad you're here. And for those that are joining, I appreciate you joining the session. I think you guys are going to get a lot of value from this one. As we're getting some more people in, I just want to talk about a couple things before we jump into it. One is I do apologize for the delay in posting videos. We've obviously been, super busy with Q4. And I'm not sure if any of you guys have virtual assistants in the Philippines, but the Philippines got slammed with a huge storm recently. So my video editing team has been down. Unfortunately, it's kind of just been backed up with the storm. They've been out of power for quite some time now. So culmination of things have caused the delay in posting videos. But, we're going to get after it in 2022. We are coming in towards the end of the year. Brandon, Q4 was great. We exceeded the goals by a long shot. I almost did double what we did last year in terms of sales volume. So, and profit. So, Q4 was great. At the same time, there's a lot of issues that we're trying to work out in terms of supply chain. I was basically ran out of most of my stock by the end of the first week of December. So, it's just the nature of the times right now. It's very difficult to keep products in stock. Demand for online sales has been super high. Supply chain is still trying to recover from the pandemic. And I foresee the supply chain is going to be pretty difficult over this year as well. But hopefully, we can make some progress and steps in the right direction. As those that are joining right now, we have about 6 people in. We are going to get this underway in another minute or so. So guys, if you are in here, you're going to get kind of a private session because I want to structure this as, ask any questions that you would like, and I'm going to answer them as they come in if I'm not in the middle of going over something specifically. So we're going to talk about what you have to do to be successful in wholesale in 2022, because it's going to be a different animal in 2022. I hear a lot of people talking about how Amazon FBA is oversaturated. It's so hard to make money, which the fact of the matter is the competition has grown quite a bit over the past year and a half to 2 years, and there's no doubt about that. At the same time, that has opened up a lot of doors for new strategies that can give you competitive advantage over other sellers. And we're going to talk about that stuff. We're going to dive into it. So, 2022 is going to be like a reset and reboot. A lot of companies are not really actively answering calls in terms of just they're not in the zone of opening wholesale accounts during Q4. It's because they're focused on the holiday season, shipping out orders and just dealing with that operational component of the business. So that's why I concentrate most my contacting for the first 9 months of the year. And then in Q4 is when we really try to stock up on all our wholesale accounts and um, obviously sell as much inventory as possible. So this is just going to be growth, right? I'm making it a goal to contact 100 plus companies per week myself from January to March, and that's just how we're going to do it. I mean, in order for me to get to where I need to be, I know I need to be contacting at least 100 companies a week. Figure out your number. What is that number? How much do you want to grow? Okay, let's say you're contacting 100 a week, you're only closing 3 accounts, maybe one is profitable, you're getting a profitable account per week, so you're adding 4 wholesale accounts per month. Think about it that way. Add that up over a year, add that up over 2 years, and it builds on itself. So we're going to cover this in a few different ways. First, I want to start with talk about 3 different types of sellers that there might be right now going into 2022. You have the ones starting from scratch who have never, maybe never sold a thing on Amazon. They're just getting their feet wet, trying to soak in as much knowledge and information as possible. You have the sellers that are transitioning from retail arbitrage, online arbitrage, and moving into wholesale. And then you have experienced wholesale sellers. So I'm hoping we have some of, a few of all these kinds of sellers, because this video is targeted towards anyone. But I want to start with the sellers that are starting from scratch, so basic components in order to start wholesale in 2022. A must have is a business EIN and a resale permit. If you don't have those 2 things, you're not going to be able to start in wholesale. You need to legitimize your business. You also need to legitimize your Amazon seller account. So you have to create an Amazon seller account, go through that process of verifying your identity and the different things that Amazon requires of you. Once you have all that in place, I highly recommend an email domain that's going to be your name at your company domain, or sales at your company domain, info at your company domain, just something that's going to look professional, because you're going to be utilizing that email through a lot of your communication with the brands that you reach out to. Next component that I encourage you to have is an LLC and a website or some kind of landing page, whether it's an e-commerce site where you're actually selling products through, or a landing page just to direct your suppliers to show them, you have a legitimate business. LLC is not a must-have, but it's certainly recommended in order to separate your business assets from your personal assets. In terms of starting capital, for a newbie, some people come into this with $100,000. Some people come into this with $100. It's all dependent on your situation. I would say anywhere from $500 to $1,000 minimum starting, right? Really, I haven't seen too many wholesale accounts that are anything under $500 to $1,000. Occasionally, you'll get the wholesale accounts that have no minimum order whatsoever, or maybe a $250 minimum order. Those certainly do come up, but to really start moving the business, you're going to have to start with at least $500 to $1,000. At the same time, I say that a healthy amount to start with is going to be $2,000 to $5,000. That's going to get the ball rolling. That's going to be able to, you'll be able to invest in multiple different products as opposed to investing in one product and then waiting for it to sell through, reinvesting your capital in another product. So 2 to 5,000 is a healthy amount to start with. And this is another component that I always talk about, which is having a script. Guys, if you are just starting out, this is a sales type of business. So, you're going to be on the phone, contacting, reaching out to brands. You want to go off of a script, especially if you're just starting. It's going to be extremely, pertinent so that you can stay on the topics that you are planning to discuss. You don't want to be talking all over the place. You don't want to be sounding like you're unsure of things. So that's why when you're first starting, I'd recommend a script. After you've been doing this for some time, I would say you don't need a script at that point. For the sellers that are transitioning from retail arbitrage to wholesale, I would recommend starting with, take your RA and OA products and reach out to those brands directly or distributors that carry those products, right? Let's say you have a nice little replenishable that you procure from a retail outlet, your local retail outlet. I see sellers all the time where they can get their hands on maybe, 10 units at a time, 20 units at a time from the retail outlet, but they're continuing to sell through it over and over. And that's what's called a replenishable. So why not direct your focus to the brand or the manufacturer or distributor and see if you can get that product in volume from them and then try to sell that on Amazon. Of course, you'd have to get approved to sell it on Amazon, but see if that option is available. It's a great way to transition from RA and OA to wholesale. From there, to start building on that, I would recommend that you have a product listing that you are selling on. What I would recommend doing is I would look at the other sellers that sell that product line and then take a look through their stores in terms of what other products they're carrying. Open up new product listings from those seller storefronts and then go through the seller storefronts on those product listings and continue down that rabbit hole until you have, a solidified list of vendors that you can reach out to. And you're going to see that the more you go down that rabbit hole in terms of sourcing, the more brands you're going to find that are Amazon friendly, that you can really reach out to and gain accounts with and close those deals. So in this, transitioning from RA and OA to wholesale, I would still recommend using a script. If you have no sales experience whatsoever, this is a little bit different type of sales than normal. Most of the time when we sell stuff, we think we're trying to sell product to somebody else. We're trying to push a service on somebody else. With this type of sales, we are almost marketing ourselves in such a way to convince the company that we are different than other Amazon sellers and we want to buy their products, right? As opposed to sell their products. So that's why I always say my customers are the brands that I work with. I have to keep them happy because if they're not happy, I don't have inventory. So that's why my clientele is the brands that I work with rather than the customers on Amazon. Those are Amazon customers. There's very little one-on-one interaction with Amazon customers. It's just kind of the nature of the platform. So my customers of focus are the brands that I work with, right? For the experienced wholesale sellers, 2022 is going to be a year for you to really build on your existing relationships. What I mean by that is, let's say you have an agreement with a company where, they're only selling to 5 sellers and they're not increasing the number of sellers. That's a great arrangement because it mitigates the risk of adding sellers on the listing, increasing competition, decreasing buy box percentage, consequently decreasing sales. And of course, price tanking, right? The more sellers that come on it, we tend to see the price go down. Um, Building on your existing relationships means educating the brands that you work with on the downsides of selling to additional sellers and moving towards exclusivity with those brands that you work with. The way you do that is you build the relationship, you provide the value to them, you show them that you are, a true business and that you are legitimate and way better than any of these other sellers. And why do they need to sell to these other sellers if you're going to A, order more, and B, provide brand management to their presence online? So frame it so that it makes sense in a way for them, right? I always frame these so that they are aware that I want this to make as much financial sense for them as possible. That's the way to do it in sales. You have to make this, I would say, number one, everybody's out to protect their bottom line. So you should certainly focus your attention on financial sense, right? Why go with 5 different sellers? Let's say the product's selling 100 units a month. You have 5 sellers on the listing. Everybody's getting 20 sales, right? If the buy box rotates evenly, which oftentimes we see it doesn't. So, let's say if the product's selling 100 units a month, let's just say hypothetically that they're getting, an order volume for 100 to anywhere from 100 to 200 units a month, right? There's no advantage for that company to sell to 5 different sellers than to sell to 1 seller. There's just not from a financial standpoint because everybody's ordering based on the volume that they're moving. So with an exclusive agreement, I can hold, even a month and a half, 2 months, even a little bit more worth of inventory because I am the only seller on that listing. I have to account for lead time. I have to account for, FC transfer time. So we're really able to capitalize on those agreements because I really portray the fact that this makes financial sense for them. And it's actually disadvantageous to their brand to sell to multiple different sellers at a time. Of course, that's not the first conversation you have, right? It takes time to get to these conversations, but that's why we build the trust, check in on them every quarter, every half quarter, and continue to build that relationship. Launching new products for the companies and bundling products is a big one. This past year, we launched a product that never existed on Amazon for a company, and product receives multiple daily sales. It's growing. We're implementing A plus brand content. Um, and it's really, really good, guys, because not only are we the exclusive seller, but it really solidifies the relationship because you're able to show the brands that you work with that you have a vested interest, that you are putting your own money into this endeavor, right? That's a big one. In an exclusive agreement, you are likely going to have to absorb all or most, if not all, of the costs associated with marketing, advertising, brand development, um, different components. If you have to outsource certain content, you're going to have to absorb those costs. So it's got to make financial sense for you. But at the same time, the brand knows that you are going to work for them. It just builds the trust, it adds to the relationship. Another component for my experienced sellers is I can't emphasize the importance of outsourcing. This is huge. In order to scale your business, you need to outsource certain things, right? If it can be done by somebody else and it doesn't need your real focus and attention, outsource it, right? Give it to a VA, foreign VA, domestic VA. Just outsource. I can't tell you the importance of that. This year, one of my goals is to really outsource a lot more than I did in 2021. Okay, I covered some components. If you're starting from scratch, if you're transitioning, if you're an experienced seller, we're going to dive into kind of the blueprint, right? The blueprint for 2022. I want to answer Brandon's questions. What percent are you running your business right now? 100% FBA. Good question. So in Q4, I'd have to pull the exact numbers, but we were doing about anywhere from 30 to 40% merchant fulfilled during November and December, right? Normally, I'm doing about 90 to 95% FBA. So, with the exception of Q4, I'm about 90 to 95% FBA, 10 to 5 to 10% merchant fulfilled. During Q4, as you guys know, there's limitations with Amazon in terms of how fast you can get the product into their fulfillment center. And we're really able to capitalize on that merchant fulfillment because other sellers might have FBA stock and their ship date says that it's going to arrive to the customer on January 3rd, January 6th. And my ship date, because I'm merchant fulfilling it, is arriving before Christmas. Huge way to capitalize there. On that the shipping time delay, especially during Q4, customers want their products as soon as possible for Christmas. So that, of course, has passed now, but still, Q4 is about 30 to 40% merchant fulfilled. If you guys have questions, just keep them coming. We'll get all of them answered. Okay, so jumping into a little bit about the blueprint of wholesale in 2022, I spoke earlier about how you have to have a competitive advantage nowadays. If you are doing the same things that everybody else is doing, you're not going to succeed in this business. It's just, it's not, it's a simple business model, but it's not easy, right? It's not easy to execute. It takes time. It takes a lot of time. It takes calling. It sometimes takes tedious work. You have to stay organized. So, you know, with wholesale, we need to start with some fundamentals, which is what I'm going to cover now. So, number one is that you have to source. If your target is brands, right, manufacturers, um, you should be sourcing small to mid-sized companies, and I talked about this before, right? And you should be reaching out to a minimum of 50 a week. Sometimes people will ask me, they'll say, um, why I can't close accounts. Everybody says no. And my first two questions are, what kinds of companies are you contacting and how many are you contacting per week? And most of the time I'll get answers like, I'll contact 20 a week, or I'll contact 10 on one day, 5 another, 30. We have to be contacting a minimum of 50 companies per week. And I would recommend, if you can do it, contact 100 a week to really expedite growth. Um, that's my recommendation. If you are not able to commit to wholesale full time, if you're working a full time job and you're trying to do this part time on the side, that's certainly okay to do in the beginning. If your goal is to make it a full time, contact 50 companies a week after your normal work hours, or contact them at lunch, and really just do as many as you can, and you'll see that it slowly starts to build on itself. The next topic I want to go over is the importance of not forgetting about contacts, right? I say contact 100 companies a week, 50 companies a week. I mean first touches when I say that. Contact 100 companies a week. That's going to be a first touch. That does not mean that you're going to just call the company, they're going to answer, and that'll be the end of it, and you'll have the account. You might have to contact these companies 3, 4, 5 times in order to actually close something, right? Especially if it's something of value, you have to be persistent, which we'll get to later. But don't expect to just pick up the phone and because you're hitting your 100 numbers to instantly see growth. You got to do it the right way too, which is marking conversations on your calendar, reaching back out to these companies. If maybe you have a good conversation with a company and it's a no right now, but it's a potential yes for the future. I can't tell you how many times I'll, look back in my calendar, I'll get a reminder in my calendar, I'll look back in, my organizer and I'll see, oh, let me reach out to them. I look at the listing and it'll jar my memory and I'll be like, oh, okay, this was a no. Should I reach out to them? And I'll do it. I'll do it because I have the experience of seeing that when I do that, it has led to positive things. In the moment, you might not want to do it because you have a 90% feeling that they're going to say no, but you have to push past that fear of rejection and just dial the number anyway. Just do it. I mean, there's no other way to do this other than just doing it. Um, and I'll share a quick story. This year, toward the tail end of this year, um, I got 2 exclusive agreements in the past 3 months, and, the reason for one of them was because it was a situation exactly as I just described. I had reached out to this company earlier this year. The time was not right, they weren't selling to Amazon sellers. I went back and contacted them probably around, middle of October, and the brand owner was just telling me about the downsides of, of what these other sellers were doing, um, violating MAP and different components like that, not ordering that much. So, here I come and I listen to what they have to say. I ask these calibrated questions so they can see that I really am interested in what they have to say. From there, I match those pain points with pleasure points and I, provide them with real value and how we're going to be a different business than these other sellers have in the past. Um, I'm telling you, just reach out, even if you have a feeling that you're going to get rejected. I've even seen on a website before, it'll say on their website, we are not selling to Amazon sellers, right? I'll even reach out to those companies if it says it right on their website. Just because I've been doing this for so long, I've gotten agreements just from getting on the phone and talking to companies that have said on their website, do not contact us. We are not selling to Amazon sellers. And it's because, you pick apart their argument because the most common reason why these businesses are not selling to Amazon sellers is because of a past history of problems with Amazon sellers. So you have to be better. You have to address these problems and tell them what you're going to do, how you're an actual business, not just an Amazon seller, right? You don't want to just be flipping product. Anyone can sell on Amazon. Amazon has a very low barrier to entry to selling. There's much higher barrier to entry in terms of successfully selling on Amazon. But in terms of just selling products on Amazon, it doesn't take a whole lot to do. So those are some key points there. I had mentioned calibrated questions. These are great. It gets the company thinking, and it gets the other person on the other end of the phone thinking about, oh wow, this person knows what they're talking about. So I'll give you an example. A calibrated question would be something along the lines of, how are your current sellers interacting with customers on Amazon? Right? It's an open-ended question that gets them thinking, or something maybe like, what is the current ad spend across your current sellers? They're probably not going to know the answer to that, but it's poking holes in their argument as to why they don't want to sell to some sellers, why they just want to stick with what they've been doing because it's easy, even though what they've been doing is probably not correct, right? It's probably not the best route to go. Um, but they stay in that position because it's easy. They don't grow as a business, they don't get more exposure on Amazon. They just continue to have their basic orders coming in. There's no sales growth and they stay flat in terms of Amazon because as they should be focusing on other components of their company, R&D, building new product lines, different things like that, marketing, advertising, not so much the Amazon target, and that's where you come in. So, another calibrated question that I like is, what annual purchase volume is needed for this to make sense for you? Right off the bat, what do you want me to order and why? What do you need for this to make sense to you? Right? It's a great question to ask. Let's answer Greg's question here. Do you use a prep center for your wholesale shipments? I personally do not use a prep center. The goal is to get into a warehouse some point soon. Um, I have companies ship directly to Amazon. I have companies ship, to my house. We don't use a prep center. Not to say they're bad at all. It depends where you're going with this, right? If if you're the kind of person that you don't want to touch anything, right? Maybe a prep center is the way to go. For me personally, the way we wanted to grow this business is just that. Um, I wanted to bring the whole thing in house. I want to have a warehouse and office and different things like that. So I don't. It just wasn't in line with my goals for growth in terms of using a prep center. Not to mention, I have looked into prep centers and I found that um, they tend to eat quite a bit into the profit margin on some items that we do carry. So that's where I'm at with prep centers. But I know there's great centers out there, and a lot of people use them and are very successful with them. So if that is the route that you are interested in going, certainly certainly consider it. Saves a lot of time, that's for sure. Value. I talk about this all the time. Value. How are you going to provide these companies with value? Send the company a value sheet without asking for anything, right? Doing something like this shows that you're invested, right? Take some time, take 30 minutes and create, X, Y, and Z. Here's what's wrong with your listing. Here's what you need to do in terms of images, bullet points, maybe add some A+ brand content. Take some time and draw something up, create a blueprint for them, and just send it and say, hey, I'm going to have my team go over this. And we're going to take a deeper look into your listing on Amazon in terms of sales volume, in terms of customer interaction, conversion rates. And I'm just going to send you a draft of some ideas we have. No strings attached. There's no, you're not asking for anything. You're just giving this. And oftentimes they'll take this, look it over with the team, and they'll say, wow, this is great. They might not do anything with it, but it takes the relationship one step further, and it only helps your case to do things like that. Going back to my point of anyone can sell products on Amazon, it takes a lot more time, a lot more effort, a lot more strategy and intellect to actually do these other things, right? Do these other things for the brand in terms of brand growth. You have to be very knowledgeable of Amazon's algorithm and how it works. You can't just sell on the platform, right? Unfortunately, that's the way it's going to be in 2022. That's the way it's been in 2021. There's just too much competition out there to just be another seller on the listing. So that's a big one, guys. Provide value propositions that everyone cannot do. Do things differently, and I can assure you that the results will speak for themselves. We got a question in here. I sell in California. I know Amazon collects sales tax in California. Is there anything else I need to do or select in the tax setting? No, you should be good. Maybe if you want to clarify by anything else, I as far as sales tax goes, because you sell through a third-party marketplace facilitator, Amazon, eBay, these companies collect and remit sales tax on your behalf. So in terms of the collection of sales tax and reporting that to the different states that you sell in, that is not going to be your obligation. Next point that I want to cover is relationships. So building relationships is this business, I say. You know, um, it's not really going back to the point of your customers are your wholesale accounts, your business owners. They are. Um, it's about constantly cultivating that relationship over time, and the key to doing that is to continue to give. Just keep giving, giving, giving. Right. That is what builds the relationships. The more you ask, you start asking for price breaks. You start asking for, um, you know, hey, pay, asking them to pay for certain things that you want done. It's just, it's going to be, while it might not be that as profitable right now, long term, it will be more profitable for you. I can assure you of that. You might have to foot some upfront costs in the beginning to get the relationship going, to get some things for the brand off the ground. But long term, if you have that exclusivity on Amazon, it's only going to go up because all sales that increase on that product listing are all yours. And down the road, then you can, as you're ordering more and more, then you can start to talk about price breaks in terms of a volume discount and maybe having them ship directly to Amazon to take the load off of you. The more you ask for these little things up front, it's just not a good look and it's asking for too much. You want to just give, you want to make this just make total sense for them, and they will start to build trust. Another key point of building relationships is pick up the phone and call, right? I see a lot of people just sending emails, not utilizing the phone. The phone is a must in wholesale. If you're not good at it, either get good at it or don't do this business. If you can't talk to people on the phone, if you can't build relationships and really um, have those difficult conversations, you got to do that, or you're not going to be successful in 2022 on Amazon wholesale. And I say don't outsource this too, right? Focus. This is the one component of the business that I don't see myself outsourcing for a long time because it's just the meat and potatoes of the business. It's everything, to outsource the selling, to outsource the phone conversations means you have to be at a point where you are really doing some serious numbers to hire salespeople or build out your sales channels so that you can maybe take the load off yourself and you can have a sales team that's reaching out to the companies. Um, Another component of this process is when you're actually talking on the phone, delivery is so critical, guys. A lot of people ask me, what do you say on the phone? They just want to know what I say on the phone. But you have to formulate your own script to a sense, and you have to do just what feels right for you. With In terms of your delivery, oftentimes it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So you have to talk with conviction, passion, statistics. You have to know what you're talking about. Because if the moment you sound like you're unsure, it's over. Right? This is any sales position, right? If you're selling something to anyone else, the second you start to sound a little bit weary or unsure or not know what you're talking about, you've instantly lost credibility, right? If you're monotone, if you're just not interested in closing that deal, they're not going to be interested either. So talk with conviction. If you're really passionate about this business, I'll go into a phone conversation with a plan in place of what I'm going to cover, and I'll do my best to stick to that plan. But oftentimes, if the phone conversation goes well, we might deviate way off that plan, and I might end up talking about totally different things with them. But that just goes to show, my delivery is there, and I'm able to talk to these companies with conviction and passion because um, I've done it so many times, and I have a deep understanding of how Amazon works. I have a deep understanding of what most companies' reasons are for not wanting to even touch Amazon, and I'm able to hit on all the points. As I know it might sound like I'm, great at this, but t my rejection rate is incredibly high, just like anyone else. I mean, with sales, 9 out of 10 calls, especially in this type of sales business, are gonna be a rejection. Um, I've gotten much better at it over time. My percentages are way higher than they used to be, and I attribute that to just practice and contacting thousands of companies, so and you gotta pick and choose, right? If you get a company on the phone and they're like, "We're not interested," click, right? Is it gonna be worth reaching out to them again? But if you get a company on the phone and you're talking to the brand owner and they start, maybe they don't express too much interest at first, but they're open to what you have to say, and you start hitting some points that might pull, on their emotions, and they might, because they're the brand owner or someone who has a vested interest in the company, they're going to start to listen to you. Um, so that's key. Another point is being persistent. Guys, you have to be persistent, and I highly recommend utilizing some sort of calendar to do this. Right? I'll get off the phone with a lot of companies, and they'll either tell me, supply chain is terrible. We can't open accounts right now, or they'll tell me we're not selling to Amazon sellers, or why aren't you selling to Amazon sellers? Well, we got people violating MAP. We have, nobody's ordering, nobody's spending money on advertising, these different things. So if the conversation starts to go somewhere, I will mark in my calendar. I will put the contact in my phone, mark in my calendar um, when to reach out to them again, whether it's 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, a year, and every week I'll go through my calendar and see, okay, reach back out to this company, reach back out to this company, and I'll touch base with them and see how things are going, right? I won't always contact them with the goal of closing anything. I'll just touch base and um, see where things are at that point. So that's key. I've closed a number of accounts just by doing that, right? Most of my accounts were not on the first try, at least my best accounts, right? If they're and I'm going to be coming out with a video on this in terms of the levels of wholesale, right? But one of the first levels that you start to work through as a beginner is distinguishing between low hanging fruit and some of the more selective accounts, right? Low hanging fruit are the companies that simply sell to anyone and everyone, right? They'll take anyone's business. They don't care where you sell the products. As long as you're writing them a check, they're happy, which is fine. Things, that works, right? Those companies are, in fact, can be profitable. Certainly, I have accounts like that. I know other successful wholesale sellers that have accounts like that. But the real foundation of your business that's going to take you to the next level are either the very selective agreements where there's a cap on how many sellers are selling the product, and the exclusive agreements where you are the only seller selling the product. Um, so think about that, guys. I always say one thing in this: it's not the first call; it's the fourth. Think about that, because it's really, you got to reach out to these companies 3, 4, 5 times sometimes in order to close valuable accounts. Um, if you guys have any questions at all, I'm going to open it up for questions. We're approaching that 45-minute mark. I want to keep this under an hour, out of respect for everyone. So, let me know what you thought of that. Is there things that you still want me to cover? We're going to let this ride for about, the next 5 minutes or so based on how much engagement I get. If you have any questions, certainly ask them now, because this is it. Like, you got me for the next few minutes or so. As I'm waiting for some questions to come in, um, I love the end of the year moving into the beginning of the next year. this is a very weird week, in my opinion. Right after Christmas, right before the new year, it's almost like in business, you got 1 foot, 1 foot in and 1 foot out. You're not sure whether to, you know, execute the operational components that are required now or start to plan for the new year. So I'm kind of in that phase right now where I'm trying to focus a lot of planning for January. And who am I going to reach out to? How many companies am I going to reach out to? How am I going to fine tune my sales pitch? So all components that are going to help grow your business. And um, like I had told you earlier, I'm going into what I call a hyper growth mode for the first quarter of 2022. Back to the drawing board. Q4 was very successful. We're already seeing a significant drop off in sales as normal, as normally you would going into the first quarter. But that's why Q1 is going to be a lot about building up those accounts again. Um, Greg, do you manually go through spreadsheets from suppliers to find profitable items or use a scanning software? I use a scanning software called PC2. It's a great tool. I believe it's a little pricey, 100. I believe it's like about $108 a month, I want to say. Yes, to follow up on that question, there are blind spots from scanning software. So in 2021, I divided up s- going through the price list between myself and an employee. In 2022, my goal is to give most of the price list to the employee, and she will go through is trained and skilled at using PC2, and she's going to go through, utilize the software, and she's going to catch any blind spots that the software might have. We've built out an SOP and a system, so that other people can do this. You know, I don't want to be spending my time doing the tedious stuff like I had told you, manually going through the spreadsheets. That's something that took up a ton of time. It just takes a lot of time, even if you're using a software, to filter out those blind spots, to just make sure everything makes sense. Especially if it's a big price list, right? Sometimes companies, if you have one from a distributor or a big brand with a lot of different SKUs in their line, you might be going through, the software might be running through 50 SKUs, and that's going to take some time to sift through. So software is great, people are great. Utilize utilize those to your advantage. I'm here for more questions if you have any. I really hope this guys provided you guys with some value tonight. I like coming on here from time to time and talking and just sharing where I am and being transparent with you guys in my business, because the goal is to help you learn from my mistakes so that you don't have to make those same mistakes. Um, I mean, this whole business is, the best way to learn is trial and error. But if you can mitigate risk from people who have done it before, you can put yourself in a really good position. And that's what I've tried to do over the past couple years of doing this, is learn from other people, look at people that are doing better than me, way better than me, and learn, right? It's always a learning process. The great part about Amazon, the great part about Amazon FBA Wholesale is that it is, you learn something new all the time, right? It's just a constant learning process. It's the overall process that's enjoyable, right? You might not always enjoy some of the things that happen on a day-to-day basis as as expected, but it's the overall process, seeing the results from year to year, using your seeing that you've contacted X amount of companies and you've seen this amount of growth, and there was this much, you did this much in sales in year one, and then you moved up in year two and then year three, and to see the work that you're putting in is rewarding you and you're reaping the benefits, is the reason why we're entrepreneurs, right? A lot of times When you're starting a business, you quit a 40-hour-a-week job to work 80 hours a week, and that's just the nature of it. Um, I've, if you think about it, the more success you have as an entrepreneur, oftentimes what we'll see is that the entrepreneur works harder, right? Because it's just they're the driver of the profit, right? What you get into this, I'm sorry, what you get out of this is what you put into it. So, if when you're in an eat what you kill business, as they say, um, if you're not killing, you're not eating. So, that's the great part is that, being an entrepreneur, selling on Amazon, you're fully in control of your own destiny. Love your content. Thanks a lot. If you guys, if you're not already, just hit the like button on this video. I mean, that really helps out the YouTube channel. If you guys aren't subscribed and you want to stay up to date on the content that I do put out, um, hit that subscribe button and notification bell as well, which will keep you up to date. I had a goal on YouTube to reach 1,000 subscribers by year end. I don't think that's going to happen, which is okay. I'll have to do another giveaway sometime in the beginning of next year. But my goal was to hit 1,000 subscribers, and I would be giving away 1 month of free coaching. So that just means that you would have access to me for a full month. And if you are a subscriber, you are eligible for this giveaway. Unfortunately, we're probably not going to reach that 1,000 subscriber mark by year end. So we'll certainly fire something up next year in terms of a giveaway. Jonathan Villanueva, why do you focus mostly on contacting brands rather than distributors? My primary focus is brands because I can build a relationship, work with them closely. I've found more profit working with brands. That's some people will disagree with that, which I'm sure distributors, depending on the distributor you work with, might have more profit margin in some cases, but I've found more profit margin with brands. Um, and security. I know that there's not going to be a million sellers, right? If I'm getting those exclusive, those very selectives. Not only that, but I have absolute, I have absolute. I'm able to know that I'm able to sell the products on Amazon. So when you buy from a distributor, sometimes you're buying with the intent of selling on Amazon, but the brand might not know that you're selling on Amazon. So you can buy from a distributor, and the brand, who has no idea who you are, could turn around and issue an IP complaint for you on Amazon. When you work directly with the manufacturer, that usually does not happen. I got another question here. Do you ever buy from Alibaba when doing wholesale? I think you're confusing wholesale with private label, um, because we're talking about contacting brands. Alibaba is for if you're trying to create your own brand and have a product manufactured in China. And I'm not an expert in private label, but Alibaba has, lost a lot of credibility over the past few years. I know a lot of companies doing it, really the right way, doing private label the right way. Um, do not go through Alibaba whatsoever. That's not to say it's a bad platform. It's just you're talking about private label. I'm speaking more to wholesale. I'm contacting companies that already have that I can see the sales history of the products before I make an investment, right? Alibaba, you're doing private label, you're trying to create a product line and build a brand with no sales history. Different business model, right? So I'm contacting mostly United States-based companies. I'll contact, I have a company in London. I have a company, a couple companies in China. So I do work foreign, but those are all products that have a prior sales history before I make an investment, right? I'm not starting and building a brand from scratch, which ultimately it is my goal to get into private label, but I am, for this year, we're still focusing on wholesale. We're coming up on that hour mark. If you guys got one last pressing question, go ahead and ask it. But if not, we're going to close out the video in another minute or two. Um, Greg S., this will be the last question. Do you give recommendations for PPC or listing optimizations to brands? Are you personally going into their listings that need fixing? Um, it's kind of a loaded question. So, um, yes, to answer it simply, yes, I will definitely give recommendations for PPC and listing optimization. I'm the expert in that, right? I'm not an expert compared to some people, but in terms of comparing, most brands have no idea what's going on Amazon. When working with the brands, you have to be the expert when it comes to that stuff, and the only way to do that is to educate yourself. I don't, you know, there's companies that their entire business is optimizing PPC campaigns. Um, my knowledge is not nowhere near some of these companies that do this, as a full-time job, but we're learning, we're growing. Are you personally going into their listings that need fixing? So on that one, if I have an exclusive agreement with the company, I it's going to be our goal to get access to that listing, which can be done in several different ways. If you have exclusivity over a product listing, let's say you've dealt with the task already of getting rid of all the other sellers. At this point, you would have to make sure the company has brand registry. If the company has brand registry on Amazon, from there, you're able to, the back end on Amazon, you're able to assign the listings to the brand, giving you direct access to the listings on Amazon. With this being said, in order to get into brand registry, the product or the brand has to have a trademark, right? So if the brand doesn't have a trademark, you either have to get one the old fashioned way or go through Amazon's IP Accelerator program, which will expedite the process of getting your trademark, um, and getting into brand registry. That's that answer, in a nutshell. You know, that might have created several more questions for you, but that is generally how the process works. We're going to close out the video, guys. If you still have questions, leave them in the comments section below. I will get those answered for you. If you're not already joined in the Facebook group, I will put that in the comments section as well. Amazon FBA Wholesale Mastermind, where we help you start, scale, and grow your business. It's an open community or private group, but open community where you guys can just learn from. Any questions that are asked in that group are getting answered. So if you guys still have questions, either drop a comment, join the Facebook group. Thanks for joining. If you haven't already, hit that like button, and we're going to close out this video. Everybody stay safe, stay healthy, and have a happy new year. Thanks, guys.